girls? Amy? Oh. Whew. Looks like I'm the only one who made it out of that. Whatever it was. Whew.
Mortal,
Ugh. Hello?
you have done the impossible. You have escaped cyberspace through your own power. You are the key.
Key, huh? Sure beats being called a rodent. Are you saying I can rescue my friends?
Find the Chaos Emeralds. Destroy the Titans. Tear down the walls between dimensions.
Yeah, okay, sure. How about a little context? Hello? Oh well. Some direction is better than none. Here we go.
Alright, well, hello, fellow Splatooners and gamers alike, and welcome back to my channel. Yeah, this is gonna be a little bit of a different video. Okay, a little bit of context. A while back, I was scrolling through my videos, and I noticed that these two videos, you're probably gonna see them on screen right now, these two little yap sessions that I had with my friends seemed to pique a lot of people's interest. So I thought, you know what, let me try to make a series out of this and see if people like it, because I have a lot of things that I feel like I could yap about when it comes to Splatoon and whatnot. So I figured I'd give this a try and just see what people think. I'm not doing this one with friends. I want to do these by my own. I mean, I'm still gonna have friends do yap sessions with me every once in a while, but for the most part, I'm gonna try to do these by myself. Yeah, despite the gameplay that you're seeing on screen right now, this is actually a video about Splatoon. I just have been really itching to replay Sonic Frontiers, but I couldn't really fit it in because I've been trying to stay on top of YouTube, so this is my excuse. But even still, this game does actually have some relevancy to the subject at hand. So yeah, that's it for the intro really, you just jump right in. So, Splatoon needs to be more cinematic. That's the title of this video. The reason I wanted to talk about this is because of the fact that I've been thinking about side order a lot lately, and just how this is still not climbable, by the way, even though this is the climbing texture. All right, don't get distracted. So I've been thinking a lot about side order lately, and why exactly the story felt kind of, how do you say, kind of lackluster? Because side order's story as a concept should have been really good. Technically speaking, is not a terrible story idea in concept. Okay, let's take care of these enemies before I continue. And that's done. So yeah, side order's story as a concept. The story of side order, if you think about it, should have been a really engaging story. I mean, think about it. A story about a program going rogue and taking the will of all the inhabitants of the world and just turning them into mindless zombies, basically. On paper, it sounds like it should be a very engaging and very interesting story, but side order just wasn't. And I couldn't help but really think about why. Why is this story that side order came up with that should have been very engaging and very emotional, why is it just not? And, you know, I was thinking about it for such a long time, because, you know, I am myself a story writer, so I wanted to try to figure it out if I could. And where's this last balloon? Oh, there it is. What I ended up coming up with is the fact that it's a lack of cinematography, really. And when I say it's a lack of cinematography, I mean in the sense that the game lacked any of that essentially epicness that a story could have. And that's part of why the story just felt really bland, is because there wasn't really any kind of presentation to it, if that makes sense. Yeah, that's basically what I'm trying to say. The story lacked a decent presentation. The lack of presentation for Side Order, and just the fact that it became nothing more than just a dialogue back and forth between the same 4 characters, made the story feel very bland. And also the fact that it didn't really seem like they were paying attention, or not paying attention. They weren't. No, don't go back on that thing. The quote-unquote main conflict of Side Order, that being Order, aka Smallisk, taking control of everything and essentially wiping out not humanity, but Inkling and Octoling's society. That wasn't really center stage of the story. It was still part of the story, it was still the main conflict, but it didn't really feel like the characters were taking it as seriously as they really should have. The story didn't really focus on it that much. Didn't really focus on the main conflict that much. The story didn't really try to take itself seriously in any sense. By the way, I hope I'm making some coherent sense with this. It's very interesting. It's very different doing these kinds of yap sessions on your own, so I hope I'm making some kind of logical sense here. But yeah, so Side Order kind of lacked any emotional depth that the story could have had, because for some reason the devs made the odd choice to have the characters not really care a lot about the main danger of Order. Like, obviously the worry was still there to an extent, but I noticed that they didn't really have a big emphasis on it, like they did with something like, say, Octo Expansion, or even base Splatoon 3's story mode. I think those 2 are a big example of Splatoon story done right, really. Octo Expansion especially being good examples, because like that was peak Splatoon. Okay, let's defeat this guy first. All right, there we go. They get defeated so quickly. Okay, let's get this cyberspace stage done, and then I'll continue. Okay, hold on. Let me try to get the S rank. There we go. And the bridge is being made. So yeah, oh boy, I don't remember what I was saying. Yes, I do. Okay, so yeah, when it came down to it, I feel like what the issue with Side Order was actually the fact that it didn't really try to do anything cinematic with its story. Because when it comes down to it, Splatoon has never really had a complicated story. Aside from really Octo Expansion, which is like the one outlier of this. But even then, the story was not that complex. And yet there's a noticeable difference in how good those stories are and how just kind of bland and boring Octo Expansion, not Octo Expansion, Side Order is. And I think, okay, can I get up this thing, please? Cool. I am so good at this game. But I think part of the reason why those stories worked and Octo Expansion didn't, I keep getting the two mixed up. Why those stories worked and why Side Order didn't is because of the execution of the story. Those stories, Octo Expansion and Return of the Mammalians, those stories were, well, not super cinematic, but they were pretty cinematic in their execution. And I think that's part of what made those stories so engaging, was the fact that the way they were presented, they were a lot more, I'm trying to think of the right word here. I guess they were just a lot more eye-catching. That's really the only word I can think to describe it. And the way they were presented made it so that you actually had a reason to take it seriously, because the story itself took it seriously. Whereas with Side Order, it didn't really take the main threat that seriously. So because of that, you don't really have an incentive to take the story seriously, as it would just subconsciously make you think, oh, these characters don't really think that this thing is such a threat, so why should I think it's such a threat? And that, in turn, makes it feel a little bit less impactful, should I say? That, combined with the fact that there wasn't really any story to the main conflict, really, made Side Order feel just really bland and boring when it came down to it. Because the general consensus that I've seen is that Side Order is a 10 out of 10 for people in everything but the story. Mainly because I feel there wasn't really a story made to begin with. Oh yeah, we can just do this straight away. Get this done. I want to watch this cutscene though, so I will join you guys in a second.
Good call. I'll scout around and find you later. Deal?
Deal. Be careful.
Careful? Where's the fun in that?
I love that scene. So yeah, the biggest reason that it felt like Side Order has no story is the fact that it didn't really present itself like it had a story to tell, which I think is the biggest reason for it not being the best it could have been. But like I was saying before, the story of Side Order could totally work, and it totally could have been a really good and engaging story, but the execution of it just didn't really give that kind of engagement that it needed in order to be taken seriously as a story. There's perfect examples of this within the Splatoon series itself. Return of the Mammalians wasn't necessarily a new story. It was basically the same story as the other two games, Splatoon 2 and Splatoon 1's story campaign. It was the same kind of the Great Zapfish was stolen and you need to retrieve it story, but it managed to be engaging for the fact that it did something a little bit different, obviously, that being the fact that Mr. Grizz had a hand to play in it, as he was a new villain. Granted, we knew Mr. Grizz was going to be the main villain anyway. It was still something different for the series. The other big reason was its presentation. Its presentation was a lot more cinematic I feel like that was a big part of what made the story so engaging, was really just how cinematic Return of the Mammalians really was. Sonic Frontiers even is a big example of a simple story when made cinematic, made it more palatable, even though at its core, the story isn't really anything to write home about. Here, we're gonna have an example of this right now. I'll show you. Like, watch this.
Whoa! I guess that's one of the Titans keeping Amy trapped. Whoa!
You leave immediately.
Where'd you come from? Are you trapped too?
Do not approach the Titan.
Sorry, kid, but I've got a job to do.
If we are fortunate, it will destroy you.
I understand this cutscene is long and I'm not really talking, but I promise this is relevant to the conversation. We need to see the whole thing in order for me to make my point.
Okay, I'm not taking that thing down the traditional way. I'm gonna need the Chaos Emeralds. And maybe a little bit of luck.
See, that at its core was a very simple scene. All it really was Sonic just standing around staring at Giganto and us doing a couple homing attacks and then Giganto throwing Sonic through a couple of pillars, which is these things. Actually, it's cool how those actually get damaged when you do that. That's actually really cool. But anyway, my point being that was a relatively simple scene, and yet when that was first shown to people, to the general public, that was the coolest thing we've ever gotten for a long while. And the whole reason that scene was so good was really just the fact that it's so cinematic. Like that was a very cinematic scene, and that was part of the reason why it's such a great scene, because the cinematography of it really sold the danger. But Octo Expansion doesn't really have anything like that, aside from, I guess, the beginning. Other than that, there isn't really anything to it. And it's kind of upsetting because, really, they kind of went backwards when you think about it, because they had a good thing going with Octo Expansion and Return of the Mammalians. They could have very easily have made Octo Expansion in the same realm. Like, they've made a cinematic Splatoon story before. Biggest example of seeing it is in Octo Expansion. It's a little upsetting to me, honestly. I feel that if Side Order had more of a cinematic execution in its storytelling, it would have been a little bit more palatable for people to watch and experience. Because part of what really makes Frontiers' story good, and what really masks the fact that it was at its core, a really simple story is actually the cinematography. Frontiers, whether you like it or hate it, you gotta admit the cinematography in this game and in its cutscenes have always been top notch. And that's part of what makes the story and just everything in it so epic.
Okay, we'll keep looking. Sonic, they act like none of that happened.
Do we even know what that was?
No, but I got a sense of completion, comfort.
Weird. Now let's keep moving. I want to wrap up our time here ASAP.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, like, you can even see it, like, there. Like, the simplest of cutscenes, they put so much care into the cinematography to just make it look very impressive, even though it's just a very simple scene. And I feel like that's the thing that was really missing from Side Order was, yes, thank you, game, was the fact that it was lacking that sense of care. The cinematography didn't really have much of anything to it because it was really just the same old dialogue exchanges and the same old information. So it didn't really have the same amount of impact. And granted, Octo Expansion didn't really have that many interactions in cutscenes either. But the thing was, it had the chat logs, and that was sort of the catalyst for the story. And the thing about that was that it actually made the story feel a bit more impactful when you read them, because it was a lot of just realistic information, or not information, like interactions between the characters. Like, you could really feel you could really feel Marina's dread as she was battling with the idea of, like, oh, what will society think of me when they find out I'm an Octoling, and Pearl just comforting her through all that. Not to mention the fact that they did take it a step further in Return of the Mammalians by actually having those cutscene interactions, which would make the game a lot more impactful and more engaging with the cutscene interactions between the characters, which again were simple at their core, but because of the way they were presented, they made it in a way to where it was cinematic in a sense. So you still got that sense of epicness from it, especially in the finale of the game. Like, the finale of both Return of Mammalians and Octo Expansion were probably the biggest examples of how to really make a story feel cinematic, even though it's something really simple. So yeah, I really do hope that for the next Splatoon game, they go back to what they had for Return of the Mammalians and Octo Expansion, where it was just a lot more cinematic in its presentation, because I feel like that's a big reason as to why those stories were so fun and engaging. The fact that oh, I messed that up. Well, but yeah, I think that's part of what made those stories so fun and engaging, was because of how cinematic they were. Which, granted, they're not the most cinematic thing in the world, but it still was cinematic enough to be... I don't know why the homing attack didn't work there, but it was still cinematic enough to the point where it felt engaging enough for people to say, yeah, this was a good story. Side Order story as a concept should have been the same kind of thing that Octo Expansion and Return of the Mammalians were. It could have been one of those cinematic type stories, but it wasn't, because it didn't really focus a lot on the story, and it didn't really give it that cinematic aspect. I suppose they did try to make up for it with the Dev Diaries, but the thing was those didn't really have any emotional weight to them. The same way that the chat logs in Side Order had. Was the biggest reason being because it was really just Marina talking, and it was nothing more. The Dev Diaries were nothing more than just an info dump. They weren't really interactions to push the story forward, which I think was one of the biggest reasons as to why they didn't really have the same amount of emotional impact. It was great for exposition and storytelling, but that's really all they were. They were nothing but just an exposition dump, which I think was wasted potential for what those things could have been. Not to mention that the Dev Diaries had nothing to do with Side Order for the most part. All it really was just explaining things that were in Octo expansion, so they didn't really have any merit on the story of Side Order at all. Which is why I'm hoping in future installments of the franchise that they go back to the whole cinematic route, because that would be a great way to make the stories feel a bit better and just feel them more engaging. Cinematography can be a great way to enhance a story, and I feel like with the type of stories that Splatoon can tell, if they really wanted to, I feel like it would benefit them a lot if they made their stories more cinematic. So I do hope that for the next Splatoon game, whenever that does release, they do learn from this experience on Side Order, and they try to go back to being more cinematic and really just try to lean into that whole cinematic side, because Splatoon, I think, is at its coolest when it's being cinematic. Because Splatoon is a lot like Sonic in a sense. It has that really like cool hippie kind of vibe to it. And I think if Splatoon really tried to nail the cinematography of its franchise and try to do something more cool and something more, movie-like, Sonic does with a lot of his games, I think it would really go a long way to make Splatoon stories feel a lot more engaging. I just hope that whatever direction they go in for the next Splatoon game, that I hope they do something with the story that would actually be engaging, essentially. But I think that's really all I have to say on the subject right now. Yeah, I'm just gonna do this cyberspace level and then do one more thing with Amy, and then we'll end off the video. Hello? Oh wait, that's not the right emerald. No, this is the right emerald. Why won't it let me collect it? Yeah, this is the one that I have to collect, so why won't it let me... Okay, now it works. Alright, let's do it. There we go. So, yeah, a little bit of a different video. I want to try to make this a series, to be honest, where I just have yap sessions about random subjects on Splatoon while I have just a random game playing in the background, whether it be Splatoon or a different game, like in this case being Frontiers. I don't know, I really like the idea of just yapping about random subjects that I have in mind, because I honestly do have a lot to say when it comes to Splatoon, even though I don't usually voice my opinions, but I want to try doing so, because I do have a lot to say. I've just always been afraid of just getting a bunch of hate for my opinions, but you know what? Having an opinion does come with hate, and that's something that I've learned and have grown to just kind of accept at this point, so I'm just gonna roll with the punches, and hopefully people who genuinely want to hear my opinions on things will actually be respectful and just genuinely hear what I have to say. But just a reminder that these are all just my opinions. Anything that I'm going to state in these videos are just my opinions and just sort of my view of certain things, whether it be relating to the series itself, whether it be relating to competitive gameplay or the competitive scene, or really just stuff in general about Splatoon and the community, because this community is very, very interesting. I really do love this community, and I want to try to give my 2 cents when it comes to things and maybe try to help make the community as great as it can be, as I know it can be. And I also want to hear or other people's opinions about the subjects that I talk about. I'm very curious to see what other people have to say about subjects like this, so I encourage people that have something to say to leave their opinion down in the comments. I'd be very interested to see what everyone has to say about this subject in particular. Like, do you agree with me in that Splatoon stories would benefit a lot from being more cinematic? Or do you think that it should go back to the good old days where it was just dialogue and the big focus of it was just gameplay? I'm very interested to see other opinions and other sides of the coin. But yeah, that'll be it from me. So thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed and comment down below your opinion on the subject. Respectfully, please. I want my channel to be a respectful and safe space for everyone, and I welcome different opinions, and I welcome people disagreeing with my opinions. I genuinely want to hear what other people have to say about this subject, just so long as it's conveyed in a respectful way. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video, whatever video that may be.